Hello and welcome to the introduction video to Adobe Illustrator for interior designers. My name is JR. I'm going to be your guide through this amazing world that is Adobe Illustrator. Out of all the Adobe products, Illustrator is definitely my favorite, and I hope to show you some tricks that'll make it your favorite too. I also want to remind the viewing audience that this series teaches Illustrator in ways that interior design students may find handy. There are a lot of ways to go about using Illustrator. My methodology is what I'm going to be showing you in this series, so it may or may not be the best methodology for you. I'm a big promoter of finding what works best for you. So if mine doesn't work, there are, I'm sure, a lot of series out there that might work better for you. But I do try to break down Illustrator into easy to follow steps, so even if you're not an interior design student, you should still be able to follow along with ease and grace. Just remember, design software is not always the easiest to learn, so be kind to yourself through the learning process. And know that if you do feel frustrated at any point, then you are human. And everyone who has ever done anything great with design software has felt frustrated at some point. So you're really in good hands if you do. Well, let's get started, shall we? In this video, I'm going to introduce you to the interface of Illustrator, where to find things, how to kind of work your way through all the different areas on the screen. So the first thing that happens is you open Illustrator, and this is probably something that you see on your screen as well. Your first goal is to either create a new project or open a previous project. So over here on the left hand side you see two buttons, create new or open. You can also find this up in the main menu bar, which is what this is at the very top. Under file you should see that there's new and open as well. I'm just going to go ahead and click on the create new button since we haven't really opened or done anything previously in Illustrator. And what happens is this little window pops up. So this is kind of setting up what kind of document that you're going to be working on. So the first thing you want to do is check up at the very top. Are you working on a project for a mobile device? Is it for a website? Are you going to print it? Are you working film or video? Or are you doing art and illustration? Personally, I always choose print. Even if it's for any of the other things, it's just a real basic, easy thing to work with. So the first thing you're going to notice is that it says letter. So these are all the different types of documents that you can work with. It says letter, and it's in a measuring unit called points. Now, I'm an interior designer. I don't understand points. Graphic designers and people who illustrate all the time, they definitely understand that method of measurement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the right side and I'm going to choose inches instead of points. Oh, that's so much better because now it's reading 8.5 by 11. Yes, it still reads points over here, but at least I can control what kind of document that I'm working on. So 8.5 by 11 is a standard American size piece of paper that we work with, so I'm going to keep that. The next thing that you need to look at is, am I working in portrait or landscape? So you can decide which one that you want to work with. Artboards. So you're going to see when we open this document that there's going to be a background and then a white kind of canvas-like area that's where you're going to actually put the things that you create onto, and that's called an artboard. So for right now I'm just going to do one, but there might come a time when you're doing a booklet or a pamphlet or you're trying to create multiple sheets within the document. That is when you would use more than one artboard. Bleed has to do with the printing boundaries. I almost always leave it in zeros. And I think that's pretty much all we need to worry about. If we go to more settings, there is this thing called color mode, and it's where you can choose whether your document is CMYK or RGB. CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Those are the printing colors that like your inkjet or laserjet printers work with. So it's really great if you know that you're going to physically print a document. I would stick with CMYK. If you know that this is going to be a digital presentation project, it's going to be on a website or PowerPoint or something that's actually viewed on screens, then I would choose the RGB color mode. RGB stands for red, green, blue, which are the colors of light that make up your screen. So there's a little bit of trivia for you. I'm going to keep it at CMYK. Raster effects, so this is 300 ppi. I just usually keep it there. It means pixels per inch, and the more you have, the better quality your photos. So 300 is a really great mode. And I'm going to go ahead and click Create Document. And it takes a second. And here it is. So like I said, what happens is you get this gray background, and then it's like a white piece of paper sitting on top of that gray background. So all the dimensions of the paper that we did in that little create new document window box is set up, and we now have an 8.5 by 11 size piece of paper. Any kind of art that you do in Illustrator is going to be done on the white paper, at least if you want it printed. Now you can, of course, always work in the gray area, but if you leave anything in the gray area, it will not print on the document. So that kind of helps you understand. I oftentimes work in the gray and then move it over to the white. It's totally up to you how you want to work it. So I already mentioned the menu bar up above, and this is where you go to save documents up in the file portion of the menu bar. You can print documents from here. In Illustrator, if you want to make a JPEG, a PNG, or a TIFF, you actually have to export it out of Illustrator. In Photoshop, you actually save as, and you can turn it into a JPEG that way. So there's a little bit of a difference between Illustrator and Photoshop in that sense. So just remember, if you want to create a picture file, you always export it, and you always export as. Edit is where you go to copy and paste. You can kind of work with a few different things in Edit. Object is where you can decide like how to transform it, if you need to scale it, rotate it, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of different commands throughout this whole menu bar. I'm not going to go through all of them. Effect is really fun because you can work with Photoshop effects. You can also stylize, rasterize. Oh my gosh, this is so much terminology that you don't know yet. It's okay, we're going to get you through it. And then of course window. So this is a really great thing to show you if you need to turn on an extra panel that hosts a whole lot of tools, different types of tools that you want to work with. This is what you do. So for instance, if I wanted to open the brush panel, you can see that it opened up a little window, essentially is what a panel is, but it hosts a whole lot of different tools that you can use to create the lines and shapes that you want to create. I'm just going to simply click close just to close that panel, and I can always reopen it by going back to the window. Right underneath the main menu bar is the what I call the options bar. So anytime that you're working with a command, this option bar can change to give you different parameters that you can work with. So for instance, if I were going to choose type tool over here, you'll see that this kind of updates with all the different things that I can do when I go to add text to a document. So font, and is it going to be bold or regular? Is it going to be 12 point in size? Is it going to be 52 points in size? Is it left justified, center justified? All that kind of thing. And then if I choose a shape, you'll see how that also changes. So the options bar usually changes only when you have a command active or a tool active that allows you to change parameters of what's happening. So I already kind of pointed this out. This is your main toolbar, and this is where you're going to go to do most of your work in Illustrator. So things like clicking on objects, selecting objects, the type tool, the shape tool, all of these things, how to change the color and the border color are really great. These are really important tools for you to know, and it's always good to have this toolbar out and in the open. I always keep it right where Illustrator defaults it to, and that is your main toolbar. Over on the right hand side, you're going to see that there are already some pre-chosen panels for you. The one I want to pay most attention to is the layers panel. Layers is a whole other video. It's a very dynamic way of organizing your drawings. It's a little different than anything that you've ever seen before, but once you understand it, it makes a lot of sense and it makes working with Illustrator a lot easier. So in a nutshell, this is Adobe Illustrator. The interface, I kind of showed you where to find a few things. In the next video series, I am going to show you how to work with some of the tools that you saw on the left-hand side of your screen.